The story I am about to tell was one of the most frightening experiences I have ever had. My name is not relevant to the story, so I will skip it. For the past few months, I have been renting a small apartment near my university. Without a doubt, it is one of the best decisions I have made. Although it has its consequences, as being alone is not always a good thing. One tends to have very nostalgic moments and moments of great sadness. That was my case at the beginning, but little by little I got used to this situation. The hours inside my apartment were only used to perform tasks, for example, surfing the internet or simply watching TV. I could spend long hours of the night listening to music and chatting with friends. Among other things, I never had any problems living there. It was a somewhat quiet neighborhood. A few blocks away there are usually gang members, so it is not very safe to go out at night. Next to my house lives a very kind and tender old lady. Every morning she greets me. She is gentle, definitely an example of a good neighbor. Well, now you know the context of the story. It was a busy week. Even though exams were over, I still had a lot of homework to do, and there seemed to be no end to it. I was doing a report which, if I remember correctly, was about the impact of a capitalist regime. After several hours of being in front of the computer, I got up to get some fresh air and poured myself some juice that I found in my refrigerator. Time flew by. I didn't even realize it was already 2:30 in the morning. It was at that moment that I decided to go to sleep, but not before going to the bathroom. Just as I entered the bathroom, I heard something strange. A strange vibration. Not so loud, but the sound could get my attention. At first I thought it was someone knocking on the door, which scared me, as it was quite late for visitors. Very cautiously I peeked through the window to make sure it wasn't someone trying to rob my house. But no one was there. The street was completely silent. You couldn't even hear the wind. It was so quiet that I could hear those knocks in detail. I quickly began to look for the source of those noises, until I stumbled upon the wall of my room. That wall was right next to the sweet old lady's house. I was perplexed. There was no way someone could have broken into that place. But the knocking continued. They were heard in a strange sequence. After a few seconds of pondering, I thought maybe the old lady had come back for some things she had left behind. In an attempt to play along with her, I picked up a rather heavy book and banged on the wall. At that moment, the knocking stopped, as if the old lady had realized that her noise was bothering me, and suddenly, slower and softer, the knocking sounded again. Truth be told, what was happening was kind of funny to me, so I kept hitting the wall with the book, and every time I hit the wall, the old lady did too. I could even imagine that she was smiling, or that I was giving her a very nice time. She was alone, and so was I, and what that felt like, I understood perfectly what it felt like. It was nice. We continued like that for a few minutes, until my hand got tired. Then I decided to speak. "I've had enough, ma'am, but it was fun. I'll go to sleep. Have a good rest." There was complete silence. She did not respond. No more than a few seconds passed when the knocking was heard again. I was already a little startled. I replied, "Hey lady, I need to rest. I can't stay like this all night." But nothing changed. The blows continued, although slower and in sequence of 2. That made me quite upset, but not wanting to hurt the old lady's feelings, I said, "I'm not going to continue. I'm sorry. I need to sleep. I'm leaving." At that moment, I put the book on the table and went to my bed, although I realized that the old lady didn't care much, because she kept on knocking slower. But she kept on knocking. I turned off the light and lay down. The pounding was less loud, so after a few minutes the pounding seemed to fade, and then I slept soundly. I woke up with a lot of energy. I felt great. I'd managed to recover after that long night of study. I had even forgotten the fact of the banging. I prepared my food, bathed, and got ready. The days in this place are usually noisy, so I didn't realize until I went out into the street that there were police cars, ambulances, and a crowd of people in front of my neighbor's house. Something had happened. My neighbor's dead body was lying on a stretcher. I couldn't understand what was happening. I asked one of the officers who had come out of the old lady's house what had happened. He did not want to answer me, but I could not leave without knowing what had happened there. since the night before I had spent a nice time with her. I approached one of the patrol cars where they had someone handcuffed, a fat and repulsive-looking man. He was quiet and with tears in his eyes, and then, through an officer who was talking on the radio, I learned what had happened. The kind old woman had been killed by being smashed multiple times with her skull against the wall. A deep horror came over me. The horrible thing about all this is to think that I was playing with that man that night. I with a book, and he with the old woman's head. After this experience, I spent many nights in fear that the blows would return, but they never did. Sometimes I hear them, but out of sheer paranoia. This was my story, and I hope that when you hear knocks, they are not a macabre game.